Hello, you are watching Be in Conversation. I'm delighted to be joined by Thomas Sennhauser, who is the CTO and business lead for Asia Pacific and Japan markets at Intel Corporation. The topic of today's conversation is accelerating communication service providers' transition to an open cloud-native 5G network. Good morning, Thomas.
Morning, Ken.
First and foremost, I want to thank Intel Corporation, who have recently joined Bridge Alliance as a technology partner. So before we get started on the topic of the day, why is Intel joining Bridge Alliance?
I think the key thing is really Intel, we believe in collaboration, and Bridge Alliance is a consortium of multiple leading-edge telco operators in the region, and that drives standardization and help to adopt technology faster. And from an Intel point of view, we believe in a go-to-market with a broader ecosystem, and we believe we can leverage that. And you serve not only enterprise customer, also consumer, and I think this together drives a better adoption also for 5G adoption, but also from a technology side.
So what is Intel's role in communication service providers' open ecosystem and cloud-native network?
Yeah, from an Intel point of view, I know most of the people see us as the silicon provider, but we do much more on that. We started many years ago with a telco-specific organization to really help our partner, our ecosystem, to drive that journey from bespoke hardware to a more software-defined to a cloud-native approach. And we invested, heavily in that organization, and we drive open standard, open source, etc., which really helps us to create a more open ecosystem, a more open network, which we hope that helps the operators also, to achieve a better TCO, a better adoption of the new services in the future.
So besides the TCO you're referring to, so what is your point of view on 5G monetization?
That's a good question, and I think it's really the big question mark in the industry, because everybody is looking for the killer application. And I think there is no killer application. But I think 5G allows us, not only on the consumer side, also on the enterprise side, to bring new services. Of course, we know gaming is a service, CDN services, that's our quite standard services which are already adopted, and we're helping to accelerate that part. The other part is also, there's a lot going on in monetization of private networking, especially here in Asia. We see a lot of oil and gas private networking, we see a lot of manufacturing things which is happening, and we're helping with our ecosystem to bring all the partners together on the table to make sure that we can drive that adoption. And I think we will see next year on more and more of this adoption happening. We see already today smaller rollout, but we haven't seen yet really the big rollout of very specific use cases, etc. I think it's a little bit very specific depending on the country, especially here in Asia where we have different maturity level and also challenges from an economy what we see. But we really believe it's now the tipping point where we see the adoption happening.
So is open architecture important in building up a 5G network?
Absolutely. I think without that, you have a vendor lock-in, and that's like a marriage. You connect with 20 years, and if something, either your partner is not ready from a technology point of view, or they're behind, then you cannot exchange anything. So we really believe in an open ecosystem and open architecture, which allows you to, sounds a little bit plug and play, but that's the vision where we want to go, so that you really have an opportunity to open up your network, and not only for the traditional telco equipment provider, also for software developers, because I think there's a huge market where we see specific in country-specific, build in India, build in Thailand. There's a lot of this kind of pressure also from the government, and I think we have an amount of developers which we not have yet adopted to the telco network, because it's too complex and there's no standard API which open up the network. So I think that will also help that. And then the other part we see, from an Intel point of view, it's important that you have from the core to the edge to the virtual radio, the RAN side, the same architecture which you can really leverage the same software stack, and you don't have to recompile 5 or 6 different versions of it.
I see. So what do you see is the industry outlook in the next 2 to 3 years?
Yeah, so we see an extremely grow area in the telco network across the region. Some countries has a little bit more, some countries has a bit less, but most of the country rolling out today now 5G. I mean, like India is rolling it out, Indonesia is starting to rolling out, so that's a billion plus subscriber which suddenly getting access to that. Then, as I said before, you know, with the industry adoption happening, private networking, network slicing, all the possibility, we see that's a lot of digitalization happening in the region, and most of the country also pushing, government pushing on that side. So that's one part. The other part what we see is on the virtualization on the radio side of the hand. We believe by 2025, more than 50% of the rollout will be on virtual RAN versus traditional RAN. So we think that's a tipping point of that side. And then all these edge services, I think, will also picking up in the next 1 to 2 years. We see a lot of POC and trials in the different telco operators where we are supporting. But again, the big peak is coming maybe in 1 or 2 years. But I think the foundation is there. It's really around execution. And I think that's the key word which we need to do. We need to really execute what we have on the table, drive that adoption, and bring that to the end so that we see by 2025 that our forecast is working out well.
Well, Thomas, thank you very much for speaking with us today.
Thank you, Ken. Great to be here. Thank you very much. Have a good day.